Hey guys, Play Call here. Here today to talk about Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. It's the fourth film in PTA's filmography. He was fresh off of making two massive ensemble films, Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and I believe this is his venture into making something a little bit more simplistic in his storytelling. He tells us a simple story dramedy of starring Adam Sandler. The PTA was a huge fan of the Adam Sandler comedies throughout the '90s, so this was sort of his experimental idea to put Sandler in something more of a serious kind of role. Kind of take that Sandler energy and persona and put it in something in the more of the real world. I think where in all the Sandler comedies, the moments that made him seem really goofy, he might almost come off borderline a bit, man childish in this movie. But it explores this in such an in-depth and complex kind of way. You kind of have this guy who's just really anxious and insecure, and throughout this film, he finds something of a light, at the end of the tunnel through love. I think this is my personal favorite film to take on the subject of anxiety. Other films I love that do this are Eraserhead, Barton Fink. What I love about all these films, especially like Eraserhead, is that they take you. It really just makes you feel like what anxiety feels like. It explores this mood in such a visceral kind of way. But I love this one so much because again, there's something of a light at the end of the tunnel within that. I think that PTA just brought out a really unique guy and Sandler in general. And he kind of was able to bring something really special and personable out of it. So I love Barry Egan's a fantastic character. It's one of my favorite PTA characters in general. He's kind of just this alienated guy, has a lot of anxiety, just a lot of self-esteem issues in general. I love how in the opening sequences of this film, it immediately just establishes just something very uncomfortable. Like, you're really in the headspace of Barry Egan. And, there's these scenes where he goes outside and it's like he's just terrified of even being out there. It's just like a car could be passing by and it's all quiet until a car comes right by. And then in the movie, there's almost like an exaggerated kind of sound going on where you just really feel every movement as it happens. And it makes you kind of uncomfortable whenever it happens. Again, just like Barry is. And to me, that just really captures what a lot of anxiety feels like. It's sort of a lot of days feel like we're just sometimes the most mundane, the smallest things will just kind of almost just trigger you in a way, in a way that just you feel really uncomfortable. So, anyways, he's out here. One of these trucks ends up dropping off a piano right at the front. While that happens, this is a girl named Lena. This is the girl that he ends up going out with later on in the film. This is the they introduced. But Barry just has such crippling anxiety. He's like terrified of her even coming near him. You could tell he doesn't know how to hold himself at all, like in these scenes. Anyways, he ends up after all that, he grabs that piano, and I love the whole piano motif throughout the film. I believe what the piano represents is something of like a self-expression for Barry. Throughout the film, there's scenes where he'll try to start playing it, but it's like he can't really ever get like this full song out. And I believe what that is showing is that Barry is something of a strong soul, and there's something great inside of Barry, but he's never able to bring it out just because the anxious forces of the world are always kind of holding him back, really, from being the best version of himself. He hasn't really tapped in or unlocked his best qualities, you could say. Every time he plays it, it's like something interrupts him, something gets in the way. But of course, now we'll get into like a more depth later. But in the very end, he finally does play a complete song, and this is, I think, symbolic of how he's finally found new confidence through the love that he finds. But anyways, he's at work this morning, and it just really captures this frenzy of a situation where you got like 4 or 5 things happening at once, and it's just like Barry just doesn't, it's like he never knows how to really hold himself or really where to direct his attention towards it. Man, I find those scenes so relatable. It's like, oh my gosh, I hate that feeling so much, and I understand that particular feeling so well. So when you watch a film that captures that, it's really something else. The way that it captures his state of mind, and he's got, and of course, you can really see where a lot of the roots of his anxieties come from. It's because he's got 7 sisters that are so cruel to him. They make him feel terrible. Like there's one in particular, Elizabeth. God, I can't stand Elizabeth because she's always just getting in his way, and it's like all she wants to do is just like, she's so loud that she's just trying to make him feel bad. It's just always unnecessary. She's just always going up to him, and she's just like, did you remember we used to call you gay boy? Remember we used to do that? It's like, shut up, back off. I love those scenes. Or she keeps bugging Barry about going to this party that they're having that night. Barry kind of almost tries to fib his way out of it, saying he's got a gym membership because now he finds out that Lena girl is going to be there too. So he's just like, no, I'm not going. So I love those scenes. He's like, I don't do those things. And she's like, what do you mean you don't do those things? Anyways, he ends up going to this party, and he's just like, and immediately they start like triggering him. They start bringing up all these things that make him insecure. They called him gay boy as a child. And you can tell he just has no clue how to hold himself throughout this party scene. There's a part where he describes something as being food, and then stupid Elizabeth has to keep coming in the picture. And she's just like, you said Barry food. Just like, come on, just calling him out on every awkward thing he does, And I'm a guy who could be really awkward in social situations like that. So it's just like, oh, I would be so angry. I feel like if someone did that, I can usually understand why, someone kept loudly calling me out on every little awkward thing I do. But then eventually Barry's just completely snaps and he ends up breaking windows. Everyone's just, yelling at him. So he ends up talking to one of the sister's husbands. He's a dentist, and he starts trying to open up and trying to see who can reach out to with all this, all of these emotional problems he has built up in him. And, of course he's like, I'm a dentist, and it's kind of awkward. And he starts to just cry right in front of him. He just doesn't know how to hold him. So he doesn't know what to do or say. But anyways, that night, he ends up calling a sex operator, just, and you can tell Barry's just trying to seek some kind of authentic connection. I love the long take of this sequence. It's like a 5-minute scene, and the camera never cuts off. It's incredible. And something else I noted is that there's this consistent blue light that kind of shows every now and then throughout this film. A very loud, like overbearing kind of blue light. And I believe what that blue light represents is Barry's state of mind. And, and I believe that, I know throughout the film you see it more and more. So I believe it represents something of a saving grace for him. It's almost like his better qualities, his confidence starting to come out more and more as you see the shining blue light present itself more. Anyways, he talks with her for a while. Then the next morning, this is where things start to build up into something even kind of it feels chaotic and anxious every moment. The phone operator wants some money from Barry. He refuses her, so this causes a bit of a feud between the two. Barry tries to decline his credit card. The operator finds out, and she's like, "You just made a war for yourself." And then meanwhile, you got all these things going on at work. This cart keeps running into the wall. Elizabeth keeps bugging him, just getting in his face in this part. She's just like, hey, shut up. Then of course Lena comes back in here too. Elizabeth's trying to pry him to go out and eat, and he doesn't want to. It's like, all right. So it's kind of great because once Elizabeth's out of the picture, you can tell Lena really likes Barry. She just has a natural liking for him, so she ends up going back herself and just asking him out to go out for a dinner one night. Which Barry says yes, and then they go on a dinner date, and everything seems lovely and fine at this until Lena starts to bring up the sisters. You can tell just even mentioning them. Really, he has all this passive aggressive tension towards them, and it makes him so angry if it's even brought up to him. So he runs into the bathroom and he has a rage fit. He starts like busting down the sinks. He starts breaking things. I love this whole scene because there's a really deep bass going on throughout it. It just sounds so ridiculously intense throughout all this. Of course, the manager finds out, and this gets him kicked out. But of course, Lena doesn't know that he had this rage at the time, this rage out in the bathroom. So, all is still fine, and they're driving out. So Barry takes Lena home, and there's this part where he kind of just awkwardly leaves out, and he's just like, and bye-bye. And I love this scene because he starts walking out and down to the hall, and he's just so mad at himself for how he concluded that. He's like, and bye-bye. And bye-bye, you idiot. And I love this scene because it's so relatable, honestly. There's so many moments where I feel like one of my weak links is kind of concluding a conversation. And sometimes I walk out, I'm just like, oh God, why did I say it like that? I'll beat myself up for a while. And I really could relate. I really love these scenes, very much. I love these little details that are captured throughout of his characteristics. It's really sweet, though, because once Barry is about to walk out, Lena ends up calling down saying that she wanted him to kiss her. So, this causes Barry to kind of run around like frantically throughout the building, trying to get back to where Lena is. And they have this, beautiful kissing moment. He hugs her. You can just tell that Barry feels very understood and accepted in these scenes. It's like it really treats and takes care of a lot of these anxieties, kind of uncertainty of how to hold himself through all this. It's like he finally kind of feels understood in this moment. And then, of course, after all this, Barry leaves. And then these guys from the operator come to Barry, and they start to beat him up. They start to take his money and beat him up. So this causes Barry to just, run away with all this overwhelming anxiety. And I love all this because, you can tell Barry's just having a night of his life. He's finally kind of getting to this sweet romance, successfully. But then there's also like his anxiety's got to be bigger than ever because these guys are hunting him down. I feel like it's almost got to be challenging. He's probably challenged by his own masculinity and all these things. He's like, oh my God, I'm still this anxious mess, I love that. I love these scenes very much. Anyways, Lena's going on a business trip to Hawaii. So Barry ends up flying out to Hawaii himself just to meet up with her. And you can really tell throughout a lot of these scenes that Barry's gaining like a newfound confidence. He's really building himself up. One of my favorite parts is whenever he's calling Elizabeth, and he ends up trying to get Lena's phone number, but then she won't give it to him. So he's just finally has it. He finally lets out all this rage towards her. He's just like, he doesn't even apart. He's like, I'm gonna kill you. He's just so angry. He's just so mad. He's like, come on, God. And I love that. It's just like, and then it just kind of goes on like it's perfect. He's just like, Sandler is like or Barry's very aggressive, but he's like but he is kind of getting the will to stand up for himself. Something about being on this trip, falling in love. It's just all this tension going on. It's just really finally bringing something out of him, and it's just so sweet. My favorite scene of the whole film is when Barry and Lena finally meet up. There's a scene where Barry's standing over here, Lena's standing over there. Barry starts walking to her for a handshake, and then she comes in and they just get this sweet, sweet hug of each other. And then in the backdrop, there's the beach, and there's just all these things going on. It's just one of my favorite shots. It's like a painting. It's a sweet, sweet painting. It's really cool. They go out for a night at Hawaii. They end up having a lovely night out. There's Hawaiian music. They're by the Hawaiian beach. They start holding hands, and then they lay in bed one night, and they're just having a sweet time together. They're passionately kissing and just kind of being playful with each other. And you could tell that Barry's just really feeling accepted, and it's like all this tension is just finally dissolving for him. He's finally just at a comfortable place in these scenes. You can tell he's very relaxed. He's very understood. So Barry, after what I love is right after all this, Barry instantly calls the sex operator back. You could tell he's really tapped into this newfound confidence, and he starts raging at him. He's just like, about how they beat him up, how they took his money, and he actually starts to threaten him. So then we get a scene where Barry and Lena come back from Hawaii, and then these guys run right into Barry's car, and this injures Lena really bad. So Barry gets kind of almost like an invincible. It's like he runs up and he just gets a pole and he starts beating the crap out of these guys. And it's an awesome scene. I think writing decision on PTA's part, because kind of daring too, because he gets all this strength and confidence literally because he fell in love. It's almost like you can say he beat these guys up. Why? Because Barry's in love. Like, I just think that's such a cool, unique kind of thing. Honestly, an angle to really have for a film like this. It's awesome. So anyways, Lena goes to the hospital, and then throughout this, Barry ends up leaving her by the hospital because he's just so angry at these guys that he just wants to put them in their place, basically. He literally, I love this scene because he ends up calling the manager of all this. His name's Dean, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he's really entertaining in all this because his comebacks are really, really not that great at all. Like, you can tell, Barry's actually scary. In these scenes, he's raging, and it makes sense for someone like Adam Sandler. He's always kind of had this side to him. It's like, geez, if you're on the other end of his, angry side, man, that could be frightening. Actually, I can see a roaring beast coming out of Sandler in general. So, it's really great. He puts that into Barry for all this. But it's just great because Barry kind of has the upper hand with Dean, and then there's a part where Dean doesn't know what to say, so he's just like, shut up. It's awesome. Barry actually ends up going all the way to where they are in Utah, and he ends up facing Dean, face to face. They end up having this moment where he's like, that's that. And just as Barry's walking out, Dean starts yelling out. He's like, get out of here, you pervert. And then I love Barry's like, turn 911. And he's like, that's that. And it's like, golly, Barry just kills it in these scenes. He really taps into this confidence that you can tell he's always, had it in him to be this way, but he just needed to be understood. He needed something to kind of bring it out of him, And it's like through love and through finding love and beauty, he was able to find that. He was able to find a strength. Because it's like, he's got a purpose to be stronger now. And then the very end, him and Lena, of course, at first it's a little upsetting because, Lena's a little upset that he left her at the hospital, but they make up for it and all is well in the end. The last shot is him playing the piano, and it's like he's finally playing a complete piece, which is, I think a lot of the piano motif was building up to. It's like now he's at a point where, he's able to comfortably be the person he always was now, but he can comfortably be that because he's understood. It's just such an awesome movie. I think I love it's an arc of a very anxious and insecure man who gains newfound confidence through a romance. And I believe that, in my opinion, it's a story that can go beyond just a romance, but just in general. There's always things out there you'll find that can make again, I've probably made it clear already, but I'm definitely prone to being a very anxious type. So I think that this is a very inspiring kind of story and message that it presents. It's just like you can always find ways to find that newfound confidence. You just kind of have to, find something to believe in, find something to look up to, find just something that can understand you in general. That could be an art, anything really. And you might be surprised what can come out of you, if you can just truly find that understanding of any kind. I love this film. And as far as where it ranks amongst PTA films, this is actually one of my all-time favorites he did. I think that I love Boogie Nights and Magnolia. I love those films. So it's like, but I think that I actually feel like PTA kind of found his own voice with this film. I think that, he was I think he found a way to be a little more subtle with his, like, because he's a very extremely, you can feel extreme ambition with him as a director, and I think Magnolia was such a fantastic film. There's also just so much ambition, there's so much going on. It's a massive movie. So I think that I think PTA was able to communicate, something similar with Punch Drunk Love, but more refined. It's a little more subtle in how he presents these kind of, themes in general, kind of like finding newfound confidence, because it's like it's what everyone's looking for in the day. We all are just looking for a little happiness, a little love in every day. And I think that's the philosophy that most PTA films kind of do. It's like wanderers who are looking for this kind of fulfillment, lost souls trying to find something. And this is one of the purest, my favorite explorations of that in general. And this is one of the, and it's also like a really quirky film too. It's really quirky. It's like a very sweet story that it feels like it's on the verge of having a meltdown in any moment. I love it for that. It's unique. I wouldn't want it any other way, honestly. It's a special one of a kind film, I think, and I highly recommend it to anybody. Honestly, I know I've actually met some people who also are prone to some anxiety. The film's almost overwhelming, and it is an overwhelming film in a lot of ways. I think that just the way that it captures anxiety, you really can feel it's visceral. But man, it's an awesome film. There's a light at the end of the tunnel and everything. So it's highly worth checking out. I recommend Punch Drunk Love to anybody. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one, guys. Next, I'm going to be taking on Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. And I know I already did a review on this a little earlier, but now I've kind of had a new formula of how I'm looking at things, and I'd rather take it on again. So I'll be doing that next. So stay tuned, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.